The theme is hunting's future. And that theme led me to reflect on the question that sits at the heart of modern hunting and hunting in New Zealand. And it's one that we all need to consider carefully. And the question is, what exactly are we trying to preserve? You can see the heads here, the display. This is what we're here for, these game species on the wall. What we all want to hunt and enjoy. We hunt them for the meat, we hunt them for the antlers or the horns, or we hunt them because we need to manage their numbers. There's different reasons why people hunt, and they're all valid reasons. There's no right or wrong answer to hunting. And at first glance, a lot of people in their minds, the answer's obvious. The reason they hunt is the reason they hunt. And for NZDA, we have a purpose, and we want to protect hunting opportunities. We want access to public land. We value public land. We want healthy game populations. We want fair and sensible firearms laws. Thank you again, Nicole. We want our children and our grandchildren to have the same opportunities that many of us have enjoyed. But I thought, they're the surface answers, and I thought, it goes deeper than that. And over the past few years, hunters in the hunting community have increasingly found themselves at the centre of conversations about conservation, biodiversity, pest control, public access, game animal management. And in many respects, all of that debate is positive. More recently, as I mentioned earlier, the donation of excess wild harvested venison has got attention, media attention, political attention, obviously bureaucratic attention. And then the wider community is starting to recognise that there is something that hunters have always known. So as a hunter, it's hard to describe your why. Why do you hunt? Why do you enjoy going in the bush? Why do you carry a rifle? Why do you kill something? But we know that we're just not users of the outdoors. So hunters are just seen as people that use the outdoors. But we realise as a hunter that we're actually participants in it. We're part of the outdoors. We're part of the environment. We're part of the management, and we're stewards of the land. And so without being a hunter and carrying a rifle, you're never going to walk off the track. Most people, you have to look at the world through their lens. Trampers, people driving and commuting, they drive past forests, mountains, they never ever step foot in it. Trampers will walk trails, hikers will walk tracks and follow orange markers, but no one other than the hunter or the odd person will ever go into the bush and understand what real nature is. And so hunters have a hard job because we see things that other people never see. We can't put it into words. It's hard to put your experience or thoughts or feelings as a person who has spent a night in the bush as a hunter, and you can't communicate it. And one of the things that is really hard is that hunters are the worst communicators. They can't read at the best of times. They can't put their thoughts into words. And then when they do, it comes across as angry. I get angry emails a lot. And then I ring the person, they're like, oh, no, that's not what I mean. And then to be an articulate hunter and express your thoughts and how you interact with nature and why you hunt is really hard. There's very, very few people that can do it. And we need to respect and value the people that have that ability, and we need to support them. Across New Zealand, hunters contribute countless hours volunteering. They maintain tracks and huts. They trap predators. They control pest species. They monitor and manage game animal populations. They support conservation projects. They help manage the public estate. And whether it's through the likes of the Fjord and Wapiti Foundation volunteers, the Seeker Foundation, or local NZDA clubs and branches, hunts instructors, and conservation groups that we're all part of, or simply being an individual hunter acting on their own initiative and setting up traps or hunting a block that you know and have access to, the contribution from hunters is quite substantial but unrecognised and unnoticed. At the same time, there's a competing vision of New Zealand to our vision. You need to understand that we're a small group of people that aren't great at communicating, that need to do a better job. And there are influential voices who are more organised, more well-funded and better at speaking and moving people and causing emotion and raising funds. And they're voices that view deer, tahr, chamois, pigs and our game animals solely through the eyes of eradication. And they have a bigger microphone and a bigger voice and bigger budgets than we do. And for some, the ultimate objective remains a landscape where these animals have no place. And recreational hunting is only tolerated insofar as it assists their objective. Now, NZDA's position has always been different. We support conservation, we support biodiversity, we support responsible game animal management, but we also recognise that the many introduced game animals beside me here have become an important part of our culture, our heritage, our outdoor culture, and our recreational landscape, and they feed our communities. Now, the challenge for hunters in the years ahead is going to be navigating an increasingly complex environment and doing that while not losing sight of who we are. Because I think there's a danger. If hunters begin to view themselves as animal removers, cullers, tools for government policy in the name of conservation, we will risk losing something that has made hunting unique for us. Hunting has never been about killing animals for hunters. It has always been about how we conduct ourselves while doing it. We all kill, but it's how we do it and why we do it that differs. And the reality is that the government of the day has priorities, and government priorities follow government budgets. And one lesson that I've learned over the past 6 years as your CEO is that if something is a government policy, it will eventually receive funding. And it's the opposite if it's not. And if it's not funded, our progress will be slow and uncertain and will never eventuate. So that reality makes the role of hunters and you in the room and volunteers and the sector important. Because while governments, departments, legislation and budgets influence the future of hunting, they do not define hunting and they don't define us. Hunters do that. So in recent months, I've sort of found myself reflecting on what it means to be a hunter of good repute. We've had people that have not lived up to the standard of what it means to be a person of good repute. And it's made me think, what is that? What makes you a person of good repute? And the overwhelming majority of hunters that I've met are exactly that. They are of good repute. They're honest. They're respectful. They're honest. They're respectful. They're generous with their time. They're passionate about passing on their knowledge to the next generation, and they care about conservation. They care about the future of hunting, and they care about doing things properly. Unfortunately, from time to time, we see behaviour that falls short of those standards. And that's why NZDA has a code of ethics, and we have field guidelines, which are so important, and we sign up to that as NZDA members. Not all hunters have the code of ethics. And every NZDA member agrees to uphold them. And hopefully you guys have all read them. And it's not because they're rules that are imposed on us. Those are the rules that we wrote down that describe the value that defines us. And they've defined hunters for generations. Being of good repute is also not measured by the size of your trophy. It's not measured by the number of animals you shoot. And it's not measured by your social media followers, how much expensive gear you have, or how much hunting success you have. It is measured by your character, it's measured by sportsmanship, it's measured by honesty, and it's measured by respect for others and respecting others and getting respect from others. It's respect for landowners, it's respect for the game animals that you hunt and kill, and it's respect for the privilege of being able to hunt itself. And in order to hunt, we need firearms, and we've seen what happens when your tools are taken away from you and you're not treated respectfully by a large portion of the media, and half of the government are constantly saying that you're not trustworthy with firearms. And we all know that we're very responsible people, and it's personally offensive when you hear people speaking badly of hunters and firearms and shooters, because they're speaking of you. You guys are my friends. I respect you people, and it's sad to see the narrative in the House speak so badly of such a good group of people here today. And so what's most important is that we're measured and you're measured by what you do when no one's watching. And of course, most hunters spend their time in the bush by themselves. You hunt by yourself, you set your standards by yourself. And so we're not accountable to other people. And so the way that you're measured by a good person is what you do when no one's watching. You know, the public, they judge hunting not by our best examples either. So we have our best hunters, our ethical hunters, our hunters of good repute, but we're always judged by our worst. The worst stories make the news, the worst stories make media, the worst stories are given as an example. We lost our firearms because of the worst kind of terrorist act. And that doesn't reflect the community, it doesn't reflect our values, it doesn't reflect New Zealand. And that's why ethics matter, and that's why your reputation matters. All you have in life is your reputation. And that's why being a sportsman matters. And that's why regardless of what governments do, departments do, activists or anti-hunting or lobby groups say, about hunting or shooting, we must never lose sight of our own values. Because if we lose our values, we will have lost something far more important than any political or policy debate, because we will have lost what it means to be hunters. And these principles do not only apply to hunting, they apply equally to all shooting sports, competitions, club activities, the way we interact with each other, the way we talk to each other, the way we talk about each other, how we interact with each other in our association. As NZDA continues to grow, and we've grown rapidly, we've doubled in size in 4 years, and we're bringing new people into our community, and it's important that we teach them what it is to be a hunter. And every year, new members will join our branches, we'll create new branches, they'll attend hunts courses, they'll go to competitions, they'll shoot on our gun ranges, they'll volunteer on working bees, they'll walk through your club doors, and it might be for the first time. And what they learn is what will be acceptable or not. And they won't read it by reading a policy document, because I know most people won't have read our code of ethics in the room tonight. But you still know what that code is going to say without having read it. And it's by watching the behaviour or experience people around them. And so culture isn't written down, culture is demonstrated. And a good example is found on the Humble shooting range. Most of us enjoy shooting sub-MOA groups, or at least I try to. And we like to participate in the odd competition, and we test ourselves, we test our gear, we test our ability, and then we like to test ourselves against our peers. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to shoot well, improve your scores, or win a trophy, or build an accurate rifle, or build an ethical rifle that can kill a game animal swiftly and ethically. And that's why gun ranges are important, James, because we need to practice. So more dock land is available, I understand, from the National Party. And the measure of a good competitor is how they conduct themselves. And it's not how they conduct themselves when things go their way, but it's how they conduct themselves when things don't go their way. Do they congratulate the winner? Do they treat their fellow competitors with respect? Do they accept the decisions of others and people judging on the day? And do they do that graciously? Do they help a new shooter who is struggling? Or do they just walk away and say that that person isn't a good shooter and talk badly about them behind their back? Do they leave the range and leave it with an enhanced reputation? Do they enhance the reputation of their sport and their club? A competitor who wins through gamesmanship, poor sportsmanship, or disrespect will take home a trophy, but they will not have succeeded and they won't have anyone's respect. The same principle applies throughout all hunting and shooting. Respect, honesty, integrity, fairness, and good sportsmanship will always be more important than winning. The best hunters and shooters I've met over the years are rarely remembered solely for the animals they harvest, the scores they achieve, or the trophies they won or shot. They're remembered because they were good people of good repute. They were trusted, they were fair, and they were generous with their knowledge and their time. They conducted themselves with dignity and humility, and those are the people that built strong clubs. Those are the people who mentor future leaders, and those are the people who leave organisations stronger than they found them. And as NZDA approaches 90 years next year of representing recreational hunters and shooters, we should never lose sight of the fact that our long-term success depends on our culture and maintaining our standards. Membership growth, political influence, advocacy victories, and organisational success are all important. However, none of those things will endure unless we build a strong culture and we support a culture that supports that outcome. A flourishing organisation is built on good people of good character. And that is why being a good person matters. It's not simply a personal aspiration or an obligation we owe to one another or to our association or the generations of hunters and shooters who will follow us, because we're all here for the future and not the now. That is the responsibility of the heart of hunting's future, and it links back to our theme and why I'm reading this to you now. It is to protect what we value, it is to conduct ourselves in a way that earns public trust, and it's to leave hunting and shooting stronger than we found it. It is therefore fitting that our next speaker is James Meagher, and I would put him in the character of good repute, as I would Chris and as I would Nicole. I think I watch you guys over the years and interact with you, and you guys live up to all of that I've said. I think I'm really proud that James is our Minister of Hunting. I've had a lot to do with James since he took on the role from, when was it, how long have you been with us now? January last year. And James has been he'll listen, he'll take advice, and he'll give me time and think about what I say to him, and he'll ask me for my opinion on some things. And I respect you for doing that, James. And also Nicole as well. When Nicole gets a call from me, she'll make time to listen. And so it's a big privilege to have two MPs and ministers that will listen to us. I think the promise that we would have a cabinet minister that represented our interests has come true. So thank you for continuing that and representing hunters in Parliament. And thank you, Minister McKee, for representing shooters and firearms owners in Parliament. And so I put you both in that category of good repute, so don't worry about that. So without further ado, let's invite James Meagher to follow that hard act and give him a round of applause.